Can you say friends, talking, nerdy? Close enough.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have a relaxed Professor Aubrey. And this week we're going to be talking about something that we are both absolute experts on because we've never had any sort of negative things ever happen, any relationship we've ever experienced ever. We're absolutely perfect. So we are the most qualified people to give the best relationship advice.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is us completely, and we don't have over 400 episodes to prove otherwise.
Well, I think that we do communicate, and I think that's all you need for a good relationship.
I agree with that. But other people who have communicated on Reddit under the subreddit of relationship advice. And it's, while I had a little bit of levity to open things up here, if you think about it, these people are kind of doing a good thing because hearing other people's thoughts, as long as the people that are, hearing the question at hand are taking the time to actually think about the issue and offer the best possible advice and not just be a dick, it can be a healthy thing.
Well, let me ask you then, have you ever asked a question on Reddit?
Not a personal question like that, no. But again, I'm not a Reddit power user like you.
I'm not a power user. I just find it a good source of information.
A power user, a little hyperbolic name there, but you are on it. Every morning that I see you, you are glancing at it at least once.
Sure. It's one of the things I go to on my phone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I check my email. I check the Reddit. I check the Blue Sky. I check the, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not throwing stones here because I'm usually on a wrestling website first thing in the morning. Like, what's the latest news?
What happened overnight?
Yes, because I needs to know. But speaking of wrestling and relationship advice, somebody took a screenshot of one of the posts in relationship advice because it had something to do with wrestling. And when I saw that, I thought that would be kind of perfect for us to discuss here because we can have a little bit of fun by, essentially doing the same thing that we did with the Am I the Asshole stories. Mm-hmm. And get some talk out of it because I think you'll see that, with the first one that I bring up, it does kind of cover all of the topics that we usually discuss here on the show.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? All right. I will start us off with my 26 female husband, 33 male, is obsessed with pro wrestling and it's ruining our marriage. Do I leave? We're off to a great start. I mean, if that is just on the headline alone, I would tell a person if that is something that you truly are questioning, like, should I leave a person because they like a form of entertainment? Maybe you should. This is said without going into the rest, and we will go into the rest as well. But do you get my point?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is love doesn't care about those things.
A piece of entertainment, no matter what it is not really super high on the totem pole for things that should be important. I've not been in a relationship yet to where I've had shared every single one of the same interests with the other person.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that as long as you have some interest in common so that you're spending time together doing things, you don't have to have everything in common. And you're never going to have everything in common with one person.
Agreed.
And that would be so freaky and unhealthy.
Yeah, we're totally alike. Welcome to Utah. No. All right, how about I dive into what this person said?
Okay, let's do it.
Throwaway as my husband is on Reddit. My husband was into pro wrestling as a kid, fell out of it, but over the last few years has eased back into it. I've never been a pro wrestling fan. I thought it was something that people watched as kids and grew out of. But he has become obsessed, and it's escalating to a point where I no longer feel comfortable. Apologies, as I may not get all the terms right. I'm exposed to wrestling a lot, but I try to avoid watching it. It started harmless enough.
Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, people start that phrase off when they're talking about like family members that go on heroin. It started innocently enough. He'd watch the pay-per-view events like WrestleMania. Then he started watching recaps of the weekly shows. Now he's glued to the couch every night there's a live pro wrestling event. He watches multiple wrestling shows, not just WWE. He started spending money, I mean a lot of money, on merchandise. T-shirts, hats, action figures, the fake belts, etc. I was okay with this, as it was nice to see his passion reignited for something. He's been in a rough spot with work lately, but now pro wrestling is the only thing he cares about. He yells at the TV like he's part of the crowd, cheering or booing. When he's watching and when he's not watching, he constantly shouts out their catchphrases randomly. He says things like, "Yeet, acknowledge me, you can't see me," etc.
Yeah, what are these things?
Just catchphrases. Like Yeet, Jey Uso. What are the other? Acknowledge me, Roman Reigns. You can't see me, John Cena. It's a phrase that a wrestler says often enough that all another wrestling fan has to say to another fan is Yeet, and they know who they're talking about.
I see.
It's like a hidden language.
Mm.
In a way, obviously. The Rock did it back in the day, that if you smell what the Rock is cooking and all, he had a number of them. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan did. What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you? The catchphrase.
Right.
He actually gets irritated if I don't play along with him. Like if I don't raise my hand when he says acknowledge me.
Explain that.
Roman Reigns, when he says acknowledge me, he raises one finger. He raises one finger in the air and yells at the crowd, "Acknowledge me!" You're acknowledging him as your tribal chief. and like some white guy named Trevor trying to get his young wife to go along with it and then getting upset at her.
She wouldn't raise her arm up with a single finger.
Yeah, acknowledge me. This past weekend was the worst of it. Those of you who know it was WrestleMania. He asked me to refer to him as the final boss all weekend. That's one of The Rock's latest nicknames.
Oh, yeah.
Called himself the final boss, but... Oh my god. And how is this guy getting married and getting dates and all that shit? Anyway,
well, he wasn't doing it when they met.
Yeah, his true colors shine through.
Yes, his true colors took quite a while to show up.
Yeah, but when you're the final boss. Anyway, I laughed it off and thought he was joking, but he wasn't. We actually got into an argument about it Saturday evening because he said I wasn't supporting him in the way he needs, and that whenever we're watching wrestling, I look bored, disinterested, etc. I look that way because I am. He's got to be watching 15 hours of wrestling a week. I say this as a hardcore wrestling fan. That's a lot of wrestling a week. When Jey Uso won at WrestleMania, he literally jumped on top of our couch waving his arms. It was embarrassing, and I left the room. I don't want to say too much regarding our intimacy, but he's asked for a lot of role-playing lately as well, and it has me very concerned. The things he's asked me to do and say make me super uncomfortable. It's all wrestling related. Oh my god.
I just can't even figure that out.
Yeah, signed Linda McMahon. No,
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to know. Anyway, things have taken a toll on me mentally. It's nonstop. He sends me memes of Roman Reigns and a bunch of other wrestlers. He talks like them, acts like them, and demands I participate in his little performances. Sunday night, the wrestler he wanted to win didn't win, and it's still affecting him today. His mood's sour and he seems depressed. I hate to admit it, but it's been kind of nice. He hasn't been as loud and noisy as usual. So Reddit, I need your help. I just don't think I can deal with it anymore. He sings the wrestler songs, he does their things, he's got all their t-shirts, he's even got tickets for us to the next show coming in through in about 3 weeks. But I just don't think I can take it. Well, there is nothing wrong with enjoying a form of entertainment. Let's get that out of the way. And there is also nothing wrong with not being a fan of said entertainment.
Yes, and it's possible for people to get out of situations that bore them or that they don't like. They could go do something that they do like.
Yes. And basically, like, I've always felt like you don't overwhelm another person, especially when it comes with the enjoyment of something like professional wrestling, because it is, I will admit, it is one of those types of entertainment that you're really either all in on or you just don't get it. And I know with you've humored me a lot with watching a lot of wrestling on YouTube, and you've gone to one show together. You voluntarily went through all of that and you enjoyed it. I didn't pressure you to do any of it. I didn't say you must go with me, or I never said tell me to acknowledge me. What do you think, Aubrey? Well, it doesn't matter what you think. And, yeah, I don't think we'd be talking on this show if that happened on a regular basis,
Or ever.
Or it's. In some sense, I do get the impression that this woman thinks he's silly for liking it, and I think on that end, she should have more of a view of, it's okay for him to like something I don't, entertainment-wise. But let's be honest here, this guy is taking his passion and just really overdoing it.
Yeah, he's doing a little bit of a ram job, if you know what I mean. He's just ramming it right down her throat.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like you trying to show me this is the 1947 version of Pride and Prejudice, Tim. I want you to notice this scene right here with Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, I mean, I did make you watch The Princess Bride that one time.
Well, if we go back to the No Chains in Hell episode, you won that opportunity fair and square.
That's right, but I made you do something that you didn't enjoy.
But that's the thing, though. You didn't make me do it. Just like you didn't make me go see Little Women with you in theaters. Just like I didn't make you go see Birds of Prey with me. The first movie we saw together. It's like you didn't. It's not that you didn't enjoy it. It's just it wasn't your thing. Like Little Women for me would not be something I would go to or voluntarily watch on TV on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it, because there are a lot of great actresses in it. I have a lot of respect for the director of that particular version of Little Women we saw, who ended up doing Barbie. I forgot her name, but if you said her name, I would know it.
I should know something like that. I was very into Barbie. I wasn't into it as an adult who would look something like that up.
That would be Greta Gerwig. Sorry about that LA Future tune. Greta Gerwig. And, it's, a great director is a great director. I loved watching that movie. And I think, on the flip side, I may be speaking for you, but I think you enjoyed seeing me have fun at the time we saw wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, when it comes to this particular story, like, the guy is being ridiculous. Like, but I think the part she talked about, too, about him trying to do role-playing stuff in bed, I think that tells me maybe there's something else going on, too.
It sounds like an addiction of some sort.
Or something. It's just, it seems like there may be more to this story that this person's not telling. And she mentioned that her husband is on Reddit, and she created a throwaway account, so...
We can't look back at any of her posts to see what whether she's a real person or because this could just be somebody making up this story.
It could be just somebody, a fictional story.
Just to get their kicks, man.
Or for the laughs, But yeah, like it sounds like they need therapy at the very least.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's gotten bad, and if he's making her go see professional wrestling live, and she's really not into it, like that's at least 3 hours out of your life. Do you would? Yeah, I don't think many people want to be in a crowd, for something that they truly despise and don't like. Like if NSYNC reunited and came to town and somebody forced me to go, I wouldn't be happy. If somebody with you would like, Aubrey, we got REO Speedwagon tickets in the front row, yeah. Bad Company's opening.
I definitely have not gone to shows that I had tickets for because I remembered it was going to be a pain in the ass and it wasn't going to be that good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have those moments. So it seems to me, you said counseling. Would you divorce someone over that?
That seems a tad excessive. I mean, that would be like pulling out a shotgun on your kid to tell them to clean their room.
Would it really be that bad?
I mean, maybe not the best example there, but, because what I just thought is just what I think I said at the beginning, like if this is something that is making you consider leaving, then maybe you should. If this is indeed, the full side of her story and, she's not leaving stuff out, if this guy is super obsessed and she's really not into it to the point that she thinks she wants to go, maybe she should. I mean, because the ages were 33 and 27, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they were married at 14, you have to assume maybe 5 years together, maybe give or take.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years, so it's not like they're like a 70-year-old couple that have spent 40 years together,
right?
But what do I know?
I don't know what you know, but I think she doesn't want to break up with him, or else she wouldn't be on Reddit asking people for their opinions. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
true.
If she was like freaking out about it enough to ask for divorce or something like that.
But it could be one of those situations too, to where she is looking for somebody else to give her that validation. It's like it's something that she may think she knows she has to do, but is scared to do it.
Mm-hmm. And just needing that cheering squad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, if this is really, truly everything that's happening, I think it can definitely be worked out with some communication. Therapy would help, sex not involving wrestling,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, how about you tell us your first story? Yes.
Okay. My husband, 35M, was looking at nude pics of my sister, 32F, and her friends. Please share your thoughts. I just found something out and I need to hear someone's thoughts besides my own. I, 37 female, had to use my husband's PC. He knew I was going to use it. And I saw a few files listed on his recent files he had recently opened. Long story short, those files were part of a backup my sister did on his external hard drive years ago when she was here visiting and had to reinstall her Windows. So we used his drive to back up her files. Those files were playful pictures from a trip and were of her and some of her friends naked on a nude beach. I could tell it was that just by the file path, which has the name of the beach written there. These pics were really buried in the backup, which indicates he has accessed them before to be able to open only those two exact ones 2 days ago. And probably has looked all around her backed up pictures, which are so many. Some additional info. My sister is not American and does not live in the U.S. Where she lives, people are much more free with their bodies. She struggles even wearing a bra sometimes because it's not so common over there. When she comes over, I have to sometimes ask her to change her top or something along those lines because depending on her movement, you could see her boobs. Oh my God. I don't think she included those pics on the backup with bad intentions, but also no one remembered at the time to clear the backup from my husband's external drive. My husband and I have been married for 12 years, and I'm pregnant with our second child. He never ever gave me any indication of being the cheating type. He comes from a family with really good male role models and was raised well to be a good man, if that makes sense. Of all the defects he has, this kind of was never a concern before. Also, he's not the type of guy that makes moves. We've talked about struggles in our sex lives before, mainly because we've been married for so long and are completely different people now from what we were when we first got together. I really don't know what to think. I just feel so betrayed. I know people see nude pics online all the time of models, porn, etc. But the fact he was looking at my sister and her friends, and that it's likely not the first time, is making me sick. Thought?
Yeah, that's just wrong. On the one hand, as someone who is polyamorous, like people should be open to, consenting adults should be able to enjoy the naked bodies of other consenting adults and all that stuff, blah blah blah. But there's also a line, right? You just
That's not a consenting. There was no consent.
that too. Yeah. I mean, it's just wrong what he did, and also coming from a computer repair background. I mean, I wasn't like massive high in the industry. It was just Geek Squad and Apple Store level folks. So it wasn't I wasn't making the buku bucks, but even then, you come to really respect the fact that this is other people's data. I mean, like, think of how we take photos today. Like, we take photos today much differently than, we did as a kid, because as a kid, you had to buy film. You had to pay to get that film developed. Whereas now,
You didn't know what the picture was going to be like until you got it developed. You don't know if it's a good picture or not. You don't get to immediately retake it.
it could be blurry and all that stuff. But now people take so many pictures without thinking about it, that anything can happen. And like, people want to badmouth celebrities, especially female celebrities who have hacks and have personal photos uploaded and whatnot. But this is something that could happen to anybody, and especially if you're doing a kindness out of your heart. Like, if I had a family member or a friend or something that really needed to save some information, because they had to in an emergency restore their computer, I have hard drives. I would let people do that as well. But again, you don't keep their info on your drive. That's just unethical. It's just wrong. And yeah, like, also the sister sounds like I have to assume it's a half sister situation, how it was described, of the sister not living in America.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, we don't know. They don't specify, but it's a safe assumption. I would think that maybe this is like a half sister or something like that. If you're thinking like, what's the issue or something like that, I mean, half sister is the same as a full sister, and like just wrong. It's creepy. I'm sorry, you don't do that.
Sure, it's creepy. I agree. It's terrible. But she's been married for 12 years. She has one child. She's pregnant with another child. So what would be your advice to her, right? Is that she just breaks up with him immediately and moves out of the house, takes the kids with her? I mean, it seems like she would at least want to get his side of the story before she decided that she was going to divorce him. Don't you think?
Yeah, and that's another thing too. And if somebody is able to confirm that I am not correct, I'll fully admit that. But like, I don't know if you can necessarily see every time a file was opened. Having it in your recent file, that means, yeah, you saw that file recently, but it doesn't necessarily have like a log of every single time you access that file.
No, but what she was saying is, like, this happened years ago, and he was just looking at them yesterday.
Yeah.
So he surely had been, looking at them.
Yeah, going through that stuff, and it just wrong. He basically, like, the advice I would give, like, this is something she has to confront. She's in a much different situation than just two young married people without kids, it's easier to split that way. When you have kids involved, I mean, 'cause you got to think of marriage as what it is. It's a business contract between two people. And if you have to consider the fact that, splitting may mean you're going to be downgrading the type of place you live in. Is that something you want to do, or would you rather go through the work to try to salvage the marriage? Because if you're with someone for 12 years, there are obviously feelings there. Those feelings can and will change over the course of marriage, and go through peaks and valleys. But 12 years is a long time. And yeah, like if the fact to something you said earlier, the fact that she's asking means that she sees this as an issue. My advice would be to confront, but then go to therapy as well. I mean, by confronting too, there could be maybe some theoretical reason how he could have accessed those pictures on his computer that had an innocent meaning.
That's not even what I mean by by saying that. Like, I think she should confront him about it directly and see what's his reaction. Does he try to make up some kind of bullshit story about how he accessed them in some way that made it look like he had looked at them, but he hadn't really? Like, that, I would be like, okay, I'm going to divorce you right now. If that was the kind of thing that came out of his mouth. What needs to come out of his mouth, for me, is, a serious apology, an indication that he recognizes that it's wrong, and a willingness to try and rebuild trust, no matter what that meant.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is not something you hint around at,
No.
You have to confront,
And then what about the sister? Like, should she tell the sister?
I would err on the side of saying no, because is that something you would like? Flip the roles. Would that be something you would necessarily be wanting to hear if you were in that other sister's role, or would you rather just them not have to have that extra mental stress, finding that information out. In this case, if I were the wife that was writing this, would I, want my husband around my sister anymore? No. But then again, if the husband was kind of kept out of the picture, the sister living in another country may ask why, and then it would have to come up. So who knows? I guess it depends on the situation, in terms of the relationship between her and her sister. But I would say,
I mean, I just don't know the obligation to say, like, somebody's creeping out on you. Do you know what I mean? And, like, somebody stole your personal information, and would you want your sister to be with somebody like your husband?
well, because I just thought about it too. Like, if a person has no mental qualms about doing what he did by accessing that photo, would he also maybe not have qualms about putting those photos on a flash drive and showing it to friends? So that was a tricky one. Like,
yeah. So I think if he's like wants to come clean and wants to do something about it, it would take a lot of work.
it can be done though.
And there are those other things that would have to be resolved, like what about the sister? And how, would it be possible, can she conceive of being able to see her sister and not start crying or freak out in some way, or just feel like she needs to tell her? And it's so unresolved.
Yeah. Hopefully they can fix it.
Well, I hope so, because it would suck to be pregnant and getting divorced. I don't know why that would be worse, but it seems like it would be worse.
It would be worse for him financially.
Why?
Child support and alimony.
No, I understand, but
That's why I said financially.
but why would he? He's having a baby, regardless. It was only if he didn't have the baby that he could escape the expense. So, but he's always having a baby.
Right.
There's no option to not have the baby.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. I go on with my next one.
Yes.
All right. I, 27 female, told my fiance, 28 male, about my promiscuous phase, and now he wants to end the marriage. How do I go about resolving this? Maybe let him go. Just, just off that title alone, it's like, I don't understand guys. Like, there are guys who would try to replicate, like, Gene Simmons' numbers with women who would still get upset at, their, like, look at Dante from the movie Clerks.
Mm-hmm.
You suck 37 dicks? Like,
right.
who cares? But anyway. I want to go on?
Yes, go on.
All right. Please go on. No. So me and my partner have been together for 5 years, and generally he is quite a classy guy, in quotations, if this even makes sense. He has style and was a conservative individual. He was a gamer and really kept to himself. He was brought up well and didn't really have a lot of sexual partners, since he preferred long-term relationships, but still had a few. This is going to be hard to read. Like they have like commas after every little thing that was said instead of periods, or stuff like that. Oh god, this would be awful. All right, we were drinking last night and we were just being honest as usual. And he asked me about my sexual partners, and I admitted after he pushed the question that I had a promiscuous phase, which I kept quite for a long time. But I thought since we are going to get married next year, I might as well tell him. He was deliberately asking me about my experiences and asking me to share what happened, who I went with because he was interested. Reluctantly, out of trust, I did, because sometimes we have these conversations. Long story short, he can't look at me the same way after I told him about my sexual adventure phase. It's like an Indiana Jones porn, Sexual adventure phase. Yeah. I told him how I had sex with 15 plus different people in 1 month at university.
Whoa!
Yeah, that literally no one knew about.
No slut shaming. No slut shaming. I'm just impressed. That's dedication.
All in a row? No. Number 14. Anyway. Okay, at university that literally no one knew about. And he initially fine, then said he wanted to go bed. I'm reading what it says here. Upon prodding, I found that he was absolutely disgusted. I can't believe this has happened. I don't know what to do. It's been 24 hours and we haven't been talking. He says he can't see me the same way. I should have just kept my mouth shut. The thing is, I love him. I am very lucky to have someone that is caring, family-oriented, good-looking, and ambitious. Basically everything a girl would want. But he now wants to call of the wedding because he has seen me in a different light. And according to his logic, if I was brought up this way, how would my future children think of their mother? I just don't know what to do. I am trying to speak to him. Should I just said I lied? The thing is, I can't ask anyone since no one knows about it. At university, I went through a bad breakup and just went exploring, but the issue is I lied to him initially, so I don't know what to do. It's my fault. Yes, I know that, but I trusted him and I feel like everything has fallen apart. Does anyone have any suggestions on how I can go about speaking to him and resolving this? I really don't want to break up. I was thinking of maybe explaining the situation, but he was having none of it and said there is no excuse. Normally I would advise my girlfriends to leave, but this is different. I don't want to. He is my everything, and I just don't know what to do. Please advise, or anyone in similar situation previously, on how to go about fixing this mess. Too long didn't read. Told my partner about my promiscuous phase for the first time in years. He is not happy and wants to break up with me. I don't know how legit that post was, but definitely interesting premise and something that probably has happened before many, many times.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. And just the way I said it too, to where a guy is getting upset that, the woman of his dreams, oh no, was also the woman of another person's dreams, if for a short time, like, why people worry about that is just beyond me. Like, if you really truly love and trust that person, it shouldn't matter if they were one of the participants in the world's largest gangbang.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's that's the thing, that it doesn't sound like he's very sex positive.
You think?
And, is really acting like a child and making her feel bad for doing something that she had every right to do.
Yeah, she was single. Based on the story, it says that she was not in a relationship when she engaged in those sexual acts. And even if she was in a relationship, if she was in a polyamorous relationship and engaged in those sexual acts, good for her. Because I've always said, if you want to be monogamous and you make that commitment to somebody, you honor that monogamy.
Yeah.
But sounds like in this case, she wasn't in a relationship, so if she wanted to sleep with 15 different people in a month, good for her, one...
Yeah, and so good for her, and then fast forward, here we are, they're having a relationship, he's in love with her, he thinks she's great, he wants to marry her, and that's the product of her life, which includes a promiscuous time. She wouldn't be the person she is if it wasn't for those experiences. And if you love her, then the only way that you actually love her is if you can still love her despite what you see are flaws.
Yeah, it's sounds like the guy in question wants to marry the image in his head and not the actual person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's sad. That's pathetic. That, is a clear example of what the patriarchy has done to people's logic and reasoning when it comes to relationships. I can speak for America, and I'm sure it's elsewhere as well, but we have our own brand of silliness here.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how long these people knew each other, one maybe legit question he could ask is, what type of protection did you use, blah, blah, blah. But again, this also depends on when this happened. If this was something that, happened in her early 20s and she's writing this in her late 20s and whatnot, you wouldn't, yeah.
Well, let's assume she had, a panel of STI tests that were totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so that wasn't a concern.
Yeah.
Then you got no reason.
No reason at all. That was her choice to have those experiences.
And I think what's sad is how desperate she is to not break up with them.
Desperate, and you could see the logic side of this woman's brain popping through, because she said herself that if a friend told her that same story, she would say, leave that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in this particular case, if it is true, because with Reddit, as you said, sometimes stories like these are, acts of fiction, but this happens in real life enough that I would confidently say to the woman, leave that guy. Leave him.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe she doesn't want to, but that would absolutely be my advice as well.
Yeah, it will definitely be sad. You'll go through depression, go to therapy, talk it out, but he doesn't value you as a human being. He values you as property because he thinks that because you had sex with other people, you are somehow damaged.
Yeah. Which is, of course, bullshit, but also demonstrative of the fact that he does not love her.
Yes, agreed. Because, we've talked about it too. People that really like sex want to keep on having sex. And that means being sexually healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Wearing protection when needed, getting tested and all that stuff. You do that.
Mm-hmm.
But any other thoughts?
Well, what do we conclude? We're going to tell her that she ought to break up with him.
Leave that man, girl.
And did you think my arguments were convincing? This whole, he's not in love with her. He's in love with some version of her.
He's in love with the Christian ideal.
Yeah,
the idea. Because I do think at least the Christians that I've been exposed to that really are into that, women are kind of viewed in a way like property.
Oh, definitely.
And, that whole idea of you're not pure because you had, sex with other men, it would
It's
be,
medieval.
yeah.
It's fucking medieval.
I mean, it's like people think that way on farms if they were sold like a cow that had 3 legs or something like that, and women are not cows with 3 legs or 4 legs, or what
Sure.
yeah, maybe future Tim will edit that part out.
Yeah. 3 legs. The 3 legs wasn't necessary, right? That was just an added bonus.
Yeah.
An added rhetorical bonus.
We call her Chopad. Anyway.
Like,
All right.
dog.
Do you have another story you would like to tell us?
Of course.
The last story for this episode here.
All right. My wife, 40 female, told me, 40 male, to leave again, so I did. So it says, edit. We have 50-50 ownership of the house. About 6 months after I'd lost my job a couple of years ago, I found stable employment. I've now been gainfully employed for the past 2 years and earn a decent income as a researcher. My wife earns roughly the same as I do, but I cover all the bills and the mortgage while we live on her income. I've never withheld anything from my family, nor would I ever consider asking her to leave unless she were to cheat on me or harm our children. We are married for 4 years, together for 10. We have 2 kids. We both work at home. He lost his job. They got in a heated argument during that time that he was unemployed, and he left the house to cool off. And when he returned an hour later and went into the room, the wife barged in. I asked her to knock, and she said, "This is my house. If you don't like it, get the F out." Then she removed her rings and threw them at me. I was flabbergasted. I went for a long walk and seriously considered leaving, but ultimately decided to stay for the kids. I came back home. We did not talk for a couple of days, but over time, our relationship stabilized. I brought this incident up multiple times, told her how deeply it hurt me, especially since I was in a very vulnerable place after losing my job. She never apologized. I made it clear, if you ever tell me to get out again, I will leave. Fast forward to a few days ago. We had another heated argument. She told me to shut up and said she did not want to hear my voice. I kept talking and finished what I was saying. She started replying, but I repeated her words back. Shut up. I don't want to hear your voice. She told me very clearly the following. This is my house. If you don't like it, you can leave. That was it for me. I reminded her, I warned you, you do not get to kick me out again. I packed a small bag, passports, documents, clothes, the laptop, phone, and left. As I was leaving, she opened the door and behind me said, "If you're leaving, take your rings with you," and threw them on the ground. I turned my head, but the door was closed. I was wearing my ring, so I took it off and left it near the door and walked away. An hour later, she texted, "I didn't mean leave home. Or I didn't mean leave home. I meant leave my sight. I'm sorry you took it that way. I feel lonely at home without you. You mean way more than this to me. I love you." I called her right after receiving the text, and she answered but sounded surprised. I asked why. She said, "I'm in a meeting." I said, "Okay then," and hung up. She did not follow up. Later that evening, she messaged asking if I had gone to another city where I work once a week. I ignored it. An hour later, she followed up again, asking if I was okay, and called. I declined the call and texted, "I didn't travel to the other city. I'm still here." She asked why I rejected the call. I responded, "I don't want to talk." She responded with okay. That night, she sent 3 messages about carpooling and then said she had sorted it. I didn't see them until the next morning. And basically, she asked him to talk to the kids, and he said he would talk to them today. That was the last time they talked. And he wants to know, how can this relationship be salvaged, or can it even be salvaged? Did I do something wrong and let my feelings get the better of me? What do you think?
Well, I mean, to be fair, it sounds like they both have major communication issues. We don't know the details on how everything's stabilized, but sometimes in marriages that are going south, the stabilizing is just two people that have decided they don't want to argue anymore and try to think, oh, we can get through this, we can get through this without really resolving the issue.
Right, and you get coping mechanisms like ignoring the other person, staying out of the house,
Yeah. They said
playing
that
games, watching TV, like all the things that you can do to disengage.
this is a tough one because, like, I think he has a right to be pissed. The fact that she did follow up with, what I meant was this. I didn't mean to do, I didn't mean what you thought I meant. I'm sorry. She did put it out there. And you have to, it sounds like, too, with the types of jobs that they have, it's different than, like two people that work at the local Piggly Wiggly. You know what I mean? Researchers or, probably do a lot of the same type of work that you do, just long hours going to different cities too, and stuff like that. So I can also understand about how she had time to send that text of stating, hey, I meant this, I'm sorry, but then not being able to immediately take a call.
Right.
But like if she were truly sorry, then she would find a time to make that call as well. And, they definitely need to go to therapy if they want to salvage it. They definitely need to find ways to be able to communicate the hard stuff to each other, because they're clearly not. The fact that, she ended up doing the same thing again. And if they're both indeed, like co-owners of the house and both, contribute to the bills, her saying, get out of my house is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. A lot of problems. Could it be salvaged? Very much so, but it would take a lot of work on both their sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me like they both were super shitty. She did not demonstrate a compassion or kindness for her partner. It was almost like her partner became her worst enemy, someone that she's treating worse than a stranger on the street. And that's love. You need to go to individual therapy and figure out why it is that you aggressively lose control and have a temper tantrum and throw things around and say sarcastic things to each other. Like, I think they're both pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah, because there's no defending his throwing back the verbal response that she, gave to him. I wasn't talking to you type of deal. Like in the moment, I've done that. So not throwing stones here, but it's also still not good to do. It's just not. Because it leaves the other person getting defensive. Instead, it could be something like, I really don't appreciate you saying something like that. At the right time, too, because if the other person is angry and you're responding, with logic in a regular voice, they might not be open to hear it as well. But if you're throwing shade back at them, it's going to increase the chance that they're not going to want to listen to you.
Oh, sure. To me, it's very immature behavior, so I was surprised that they were 40. Which seems so young now, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, you never saw me and my wife, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a sign of my maturity that I think if this happened to me, I would not stick around if I was either of them.
Well, as someone who it did happen to, because the story from his side of things had a lot of parallels to, what it was like with me and my wife. And yeah, like I've said on the show before, when, I've talked about that past relationship, I've been the very first one to open up and say, I gave as much as I took. It was unhealthy on both sides. But, maybe something to ultimately consider is if she has no problem throwing down the gauntlet like that, maybe you should leave. Maybe you should. Maybe it would be best.
Right. And then you get into the whole Is it better for the kids, for the people to stay together, even if they're acting this way towards each other? Or is it better for them to like figure out how to co-parent? Like, I can't imagine them figuring out how to co-parent, but like at some point, hopefully they would realize that their children needed both of them to be calm people.
And as someone who has been in a relationship that went south because we were doing it for the kids, there are a lot of barriers that come your way that make it really hard to have that type of relationship be successful. Can it be done? Of course. There are 7 billion plus people on this planet. There are people that are able to survive and all that. But, like, really, if you think of a marriage even with kids as what it really is, a business relationship, like, I think people would have a much easier time just stating, yeah, maybe it is best to go, because and then having those conversations with a professional. You can have, if you two are splitting, you could still go to a therapist and talk about,
How do you control your temper?
how to control the temper, and also have that discussion of with somebody else. Recommended that they be licensed and all that stuff, but about which parent would be the best for the kids to have their primary residence at, that type of thing.
Sure. I mean, a lot of kids now are 50-50, and so they don't really have a primary residence. They have two independent residences. And there are also people who do the nest approach, which is the kid has the house and the parents come and go. Which to me makes the most sense.
I've never heard of that.
Really?
I've never heard of that.
I've never actually known anybody who did it, except, no, I did. A former coworker of mine was getting divorced, and it was taking a really long time. And so during that process, they rented a different apartment, and whoever it wasn't their time, they stayed in the apartment, and then that person went back to the house, and the other person went to the apartment.
I could just imagine, does your mother fuck Steve in his bed now? Anyway. I could see drawbacks in that, but that is still working together.
I mean, I think that would be an ideal kind of agreement, that you could make an agreement like that with somebody and have that work out.
Yeah, that would show a sign of maturity as well, that not a lot of people in splitting relationships, as we have seen this episode, can do.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but that is the end of our journey giving relationship advice.
Hopefully nobody takes our advice. We definitely you do not need to listen to our relationship advice. I do think it might have been okay advice.
We do that, yes. We give the type of disclaimer you would have by listening to people do tarot readings as well. It is fun for entertainment purposes, but if you're able to get something meaningful out of our entertainment here, then good for us, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on some of the stories we hear today, or do you want to acknowledge me now?
I will acknowledge you.
All right. You did it.
I just stuck my hand up in the air with one finger.
I can attest to that actually happening, folks. So maybe one day I can work on her and get a championship belt.
Yeah, no.
Oh, come on. Just showing up, I'm the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think that's happening anyway.
No.
All right. Each Monday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
If you smell what the rock is cooking.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.